Please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Okay, well, welcome. We're starting off August meeting of the Central Florida Computer Society Tech SIG, and Paul Colton has a relatively short presentation he'd like to make, so we're going to do that first. And I'm hearing more thunder here. Hopefully everything will stay copacetic for us and not a lot of rain. But okay, Paul, why don't you start with what you want to do?
So going back to the last Tech SIG, I talked about my lightning hit on my house back in May, and how I lost a multitude of devices, and the last thing that was broken was my ham radio transceiver that I've had for several years. And so I've been at this now probably about 3 months, roughly, depending how you want to count time. And the guru, I was going to send it to this guy in the state of Washington, but I never could get a hold of him. And there's a guy out in St. Cloud who I talked to once, and I asked some questions, and I didn't like some of the answers coming back. So, I got so disgusted with the whole world, like said, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. So I got some schematic on the internet of the service manual, and got out my 60 years of troubleshooting, and went and I have at it with my meter and my scope, and found the problem. And so I found the problem probably about a month and a half ago, roughly. And getting the parts was a whole adventure. And doing this kind of repair was a whole new adventure. And the reason, because these parts just don't get soldered on like transistors on a board. It's called hot air soldering, a new skill I had to learn. I watched a lot of videos, and I got some bad printed circuit boards with a lot of surface mounted components, which I practiced on. And I practiced for like a long time, weeks and weeks and weeks, screwed around, watched a lot of videos. I was very gun shy about going to, so anyway, I'm going to flip this thing here. That's the background for anybody who didn't hear it. So let me see here. All right. Okay. So I'm on my iPad today. So before I go over to the radio, this over here is the hot air station with, that's the gun. It'll blow up to 800 degrees heat. And it's also got a little soldering iron that came with it. That works okay. I air it'll a solder sucker that's got a vacuum pump. Got a vacuum pump in the box here, and this is the gun, and you put this on the hole and you pull the trigger and it sucks the solder out. A lot of you are probably familiar with the sucker that you cock in the suction thing, which I probably got one somewhere over here. We've all used these. They work okay, but not on the stuff I was working on. I needed something, so I had to gear up and buy a lot of equipment. So, this was about $120, the solder sucker, and the hot air thing was, I don't remember, maybe $55, $60. And the rest of the stuff I had. Then I had to get parts, right? So these guys wanted me to go out and get crossover transistors. These are not just transistors, they're FETs. And so I said, why don't I just call ICOM and see if they've got the transistors? And of course they did. And of course they're expensive from ICOM, but that's all I had to go on. So I ordered 2 of them with shipping, cost me $50. Then I get on this other site where I got all some other equipment from, and I got two more, just for the heck of it, I got two more FET transistors for $16. And that's the new ones, haven't been used. And this here is the transistor. I mean, I got to hold it with a pair of holding tweezers, and there's no leads. You can see solder on top and bottom and in the middle, and that's how it gets soldered down. And you got to heat the thing and solder it down. This over here is the radio, which is still apart, and that is the board I worked on. So you unscrew it, and then there's 16 pins on the outside perimeter. And getting the solder out of those pins was one of the toughest jobs. That's why I needed that professional solder sucker. So I finally got the board off, and then I had a heat sink that soldered to the board underneath, which you have to use that hot air thing to get off. And then I had to heat up those devices to take them off and put them on. I also had to buy this stuff called Kapton tape. What it is when you're heating up these little devices, and you can see all these little resistors and components next to it, if you get them too hot, you can blow them off the board. Disaster. So you put this tape on everything you're not going to solder, and it keeps the heat off and it keeps the air off, because there's enough air coming out of that thing to blow the thing across the room. Well, not across the room, but to blow it off the board and then some. So anyway, I just got done 2 days ago. I put it in, and I really was hoping for the best, and I was expecting the worst, but I was prepared for, not working. And one FET not checked bad. One FET I thought was bad. The other one I thought was good, but I still replaced it, because getting that board off, I didn't want to have to do that again. That was the worst. Getting that board out of here was worse than putting the FETs on the board. So I decided to replace both. So I put two brand new ones on, turned it on. And the problem with the transmitter, in case I wasn't clear up front, and some don't have the history, is that the receiver worked and it transmitted with really low power, very low power, and none of the indications on the front face of the transmitter were right. So after I hooked it up, turned it on, everything looked good. I got a watt meter out. I took some waveforms. I took some voltages. I think I'm a happy camper, and I'll probably start putting this thing together tomorrow. And
I got a question for you, Paul.
I cleaned this room up because it's been a disaster for 3 months. So that's pretty much my story. And
Question, Paul.
yes, sir.
You know me, so I'm the kind of guy that goes out and buys something new instead of tries to repair something old. You're the guy that repairs something old instead of going out and buying something new. So you emphasized the expense of having to get the tools, the time it took you to learn all these techniques, the expense of getting the new field effect transistors, the FETs. Compare that to what it would have cost you to go out and get a new transceiver.
Well, first of all, I did go through that exercise. I got on eBay, and I got on, they used to be all over the place. I could not find one like this on eBay, zero. And I looked for several days. It's an older radio. What this radio has that most radios of today's doesn't, it's got the 2 meter, most radios don't have, that have called HF. They have 6 meters up through 160 meters, and they generally don't have 2 meters because of the higher frequency. You need, I guess, different components, because this has one set of outputs for 2 meters and another set of outputs for everything else. So,
But
to put
in round,
this in
in round numbers, if you could have, if you could have, if you could have
$1,000.
found, okay,
About $1,000 is what I paid for this roughly 7, 8 years ago. And
so in that range.
and I really couldn't, but you know, I spent you know, a couple $100 here, and I have something. I mean, I got new tools now. You know,
That's
I mean,
true.
I've got these tools, and I will now. The hot air blower, man, you know, that wasn't that expensive. That was probably about $60, and you know, I probably won't use that. How much surface mounted technology I'm going to be working with is going to be probably nil. But so that's $60. But the desoldering iron is something that is very useful. And I will be using that because I use that solder sucker on other things. And to have that desoldering tool was very nice. I bought 2 extra transistors because they were $16, and I go, why not? Because, you know, reading all the write-ups on the internet about how these things always go bad. These are the drivers before the final stage, and they run hot depending how much power you put through them. So they have a reputation for going bad. And
Have you
so
thought of doing, documenting it with a YouTube video and then sharing that, you know, with the ham radio folks via social media or anything?
well, what I'm probably going to do is write up a thing that I told my ham radio club actually asked me to write up the analysis and what happened. And I said, okay, I will do that. But I wasn't about to do it if I was a failure. So now that it looks like I'm a success, I guess I will write it up, and I'll give them a little dissertation at the next meeting, or however they want it. Maybe they want to put it in a newsletter, maybe. But you know, I thought about doing a YouTube, but I could still do the YouTube. But you know, I had too much going on to think about. You know, the last time I did a YouTube, I'm replacing that tuner on that TV set, which I never published because the thing went south. So I'm not going to, and that was a disaster. So, you know, I had to get a new board. I mean, the old board was bad anyway, but I cited something and it went south. The tuner stopped working. Shouldn't have happened, but, you know, so I ended up buying a new board for $70 and put the TV back in service. So, you know, after trying to fix it 4 times for a problem, but yeah, who knows? Maybe the hot air solder could. I think that the big IC chip, which was about 1 inch square next to the connector, I think every time I yanked on this chip, things would go crazy. So maybe but there was no solder underneath the board to even heat up. You would have had to heat it from the top and then maybe hope for the best. I don't know. It would have been an interesting lab experiment. You know, I wouldn't have put my money down on fixing it. So, but anyway, so it looks like the radio's good. And, you know, my other, you know, thing that I would have had to probably do was go out and buy another radio with HF frequency, 6 meters up there, because they don't make radios with 2 meters anymore combined. This is a very unique radio, and that's why I put so much effort into fixing it, because they just don't make these anymore. People go on 2 meters, have a standalone 2 meter radio. They'll do 2 meters and 440 or 2 meters and something else, but they, a lot of people I talk to don't have a combination rig like this. And when I bought it, I didn't realize how rare it was. But a lot of people have this and really like the unit. So
I see the Armitages have joined us, so if Stan, if I could switch over and cover
Okay.
the T-Mobile.
Well, okay, I just have a couple of quick comments on Paul's.
Yeah, we'll try to cover.
First of all, Sky Junk or Skycraft, technically on Fairbanks, I was there on Thursday. Today was their last day on Fairbanks. They're closing it down. They have purchased or rent, leased or whatever, a new facility twice the size on Edgewater, right near Lee Road in the same plaza where the post office is. And they say they're going to have everything moved in 2 weeks, which I think would be, amazing if they can do it. But and you could have gotten a lot of that stuff. I'm sure they had much of what you just were purchasing.
I was there. I went to Skycraft. They had nothing. They had nothing that I showed. They had nothing like this, and they definitely didn't have those transistors. And they don't have side suckers, and they don't have hot air blowers. When I talked to, they were going to move a couple of months ago. So when I was in there a few weeks ago, I said to the guy, "What's happening with moving?" He says, "Well, we've delayed it. We had a couple of bumps in the road, and we've delayed it, and we're probably going to move." And he kind of gave me a rough date. I forget what he said now, but this is I thought he told me before the end of the year, so I really didn't know when. So
they told me it would be. They told me it would be 2 weeks. They think they're going to get everything moved in 2 weeks, which I think would just be incredible. But we'll see. It's a big place that they're moving.
Hey, Paul, is this what you got? Is that your hot air gun?
No.
Okay.
No, God, no. What are you sucking, an elephant?
No, you can solder this. You can solder with it. You can. It's great for heat shrink.
Yeah, but
I got it on Amazon.
Yeah.
You can adjust the heat and you can adjust the blower. And it's got a.
It's not for doing surface mounted.
Oh.
Surface mounted. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm all hooked up. Hold on. Oh God. Okay. This is my hot air gun here.
Oh.
Okay.
Well,
and that's
kind of the same.
And that's the controller, and this is the gun.
Oh yeah.
And it comes with different nozzles.
Mm-hmm.
Comes with an assortment of different nozzles, and the board. Let's see here. This is the board I was playing with, and you can see all these little devices. They're really small, and you got to have something you can really control the heat on. This here is a bowl of stuff I took off playing with it. You know, I would take something off and I put it on. I take something off and I put it on to try to get to know how much heat and how much hot air, you want to deliver. Now, through 60 years of doing this, the one rule, we've had, anybody who works with electronics, is don't heat up your devices, the transistors, too much, and you'll ruin them. But here, I'm taking this device over here, and I'm blowing hot air on this to melt solder, and that's against everything I ever learned. But somebody in one of the write-ups in one of the videos said about the amount of heat, and they said, well, these devices designed for that. Whoop-de-doo. So, I mean, all I could do is just take that comment at face value and just go for it. And, say, okay, I guess that's the truth.
Yeah.
I've never
that Kapton tape that you have, that yellow tape, on some 3D printers, on one of mine, the Kapton tape is 12 inches wide, and you put it on the printing bed because it can handle like 500 degrees. It's an amazing tape. So 3D printers actually print on Kapton tape.
Really?
Yeah. If you have a glass if you have a glass top, a bed for printing bed, then you put the Kapton tape on top of the glass and then print on the Kapton.
You can buy Kapton tape any width that that you want, and I just bought I bought 1 inch. I figured that would just be a good number, and I don't know how long it is. I guess there's 30 yards on there, and it's up for sale if you want some.
Yeah, I think I got some that's 12 inches wide.
Yeah, I use 6 inches of that, and the chance of me using more in there, I hope I don't have to use it anymore, because I don't want to be doing any more of this work. I think at first I thought the lightning came through the antenna, but God knows, I don't know. I mean, I had lightning came through the house. It was on the AC, because it blew everything that was on, all the phones and the bed power supply, and a whole sort of TV sets. Everything was plugged into walls, got shot. But the radio here is not plugged into the wall. It's plugged into a power supply that sits on the floor that weighs like 30 pounds. And the power supply puts out 13 volts, and that's what the radio runs on. It runs on 13 volts.
Wow.
So the power supply got hit also. When I turned it on, it didn't work either. And that's one of the things. That was an easy fix. But I didn't realize the radio was no good, because I turned it on when I fixed the power supply. The radio came on, everything looked okay until I went to use it.
If you don't mind me jumping in, I'd like to get to the next subject, because I invited Ken Armitage to give us his research on what he had to do with his T-Mobile data breach.
Go for it.
Okay, Stan? Or did we lose Stan? Okay.
Let me get my mic off.
All right.
Okay.
What I'm going to do real quick is just show, by sharing my screen, I want to just show real quickly what T-Mobile has on their website. Let me just share this. Okay. So most of you probably know, it was in the news, that T-Mobile had a data breach. And this is the T-Mobile website. I'm pretty sure I've shared this URL with everyone in the past, but I'll share it again in the show notes when we post the video. But if you go to tmobile.com, you'll find your way to the data breach page, which looks like this. And they've got a pretty extensive cover of what happened. They say that their investigation's ongoing, but when they say they verified a subset of their data has been accessed by unauthorized individuals, that's playing it down. There's millions of records that have been involved. And then they talk about they're focusing on taking care of the customers and the rest of that. So the biggest thing is that, to start with, anybody who's ever had an account with T-Mobile, whether it's open or whether it's closed, can sign up for identity monitoring with McAfee. And this is not their antivirus. They actually have an identity tracking service. And the only T-Mobile account I had was about 3 years old when I got a Wi-Fi hotspot, but I had to give them the information anyway. So I was in their database and I was available for it. The things that Ken got into it, which he'll talk about here in just a second, is for T-Mobile customers, you can activate their scam shield, you can protect your T-Mobile account, and there's additional resources that they give you that are general information. You'll probably hear thunder and lightning in my background, so hopefully I don't drop off. And it's good general security information for the average person just to go through and get your credit reports, implementing fraud alerts, security freezes, gives information on the 3 credit bureaus, and the information you need to provide in order to get them. The government has a website. It is the only one that the government authorizes. And if you just search on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever you search with, for your annual credit report, you're going to find many, returns. We'll provide this for you free of charge, right? You want to go to only to annualcreditreport.com, which is the government contractor that then sets up to let you get your free credit reports. And you can get the free reports, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, one per every 4 months. And finally, a reference for fraud alerts and credit freezes and what are the differences. And the Federal Trade Commission has an excellent site. I'll make that link available as well. Both of them have their use depending on how you use your credit, whether you're going to buy something in the near future or whether you don't buy anything on a regular basis with credit. So it pays to become aware of all these items. And at this point, I'm going to stop my screen sharing. And I'm going to let Ken pop in because he is a T-Mobile subscriber, and tell us what he recently went through in response to the notification.
Okay. It was actually fairly easy, but it was a long process entering all the information. What I'm talking about is the
McAfee. Protection.
And the only problem I ran into, which was something I wish I had known up front, was that it is only one person's phone number that you're putting this protection plan on. Donna and I have two separate phone numbers, and you can put the protection on both, but it is a huge process. So I was able to put my number, cover it with protection, and list all of our information on just my phone number. And I decided not to do that same process with Donna's phone number because the only information I couldn't put in was the passport, her driver's license, and that was about it.
Now, what did you do with the
we
credit
share
bureau?
these accounts, and these accounts have separate account numbers. And credit bureau, yeah.
We had previously already set up fraud, may put a fraud alert on. So they're all, and we also froze our credit. So no one can get a new credit card, and we have fraud alerts on all three of our accounts. And the other thing everybody needs to know is AT&T had the same thing happen. So all AT&T customers are in the same bind that we are. But he had to put in every single credit card we had. He had to put in every single loyalty card we had, passport numbers, driver's license numbers. I mean, he was coming down to pull everything. And then I realized he didn't cover me for anything. Some of those credit cards are in my name that he put in his, so who knows? Anyway, it was a nightmare, but there's additional steps. If you go to, Mike has the website, he can put that link in chat because we've got to get to another seminar, but there's two additional things. One is your phone scam alert for free. And the last one, Ken, you just did was this protection. What's the word? Protection management. Anyway, there's 3 different steps you go through with T-Mobile, and then you also do your issues with the credit bureaus to get your accounts frozen so that no one else can apply for credit because they got all kinds of information. So anyway, it was a whole day for him to do all this.
Right. And it too was an answer, which I thought was ridiculous. They asked a 5 series questions. Do you have, purple dogs and green animals and so on and so forth? But they do about 10 of those questions. And honestly, out of 10, I think only 2 of them, they had the right answer. They're showing you an answer, and you got to say, is that correct or not? And you click it if it's correct, and if you don't, you go from there. It was a
What
fun
what that's actually doing, Ken, is they're actually connecting to the credit bureau at the time that they're asking you those questions. And that was my concern, that I didn't have my credit freeze on. And my concern was if somebody had a credit freeze on before and then went to McAfee, you might not be able to go through that process. So it looks like if you had your credit freezes on, they could still get to the credit bureau and get to your database and then look those questions up to verify that you are who you are.
Yeah.
Perhaps, but they were not the questions that we went through when we tried to set up the fraud alerts. Those asked like when your mortgage was and who it was paid to. Well, you know, we don't have a mortgage, we're retired. So we wrote none. Well, we didn't answer correctly. I went through all three before I got one to accept our answers. And then once one of the credit bureaus accepts your answer for the fraud, they'll inform the other two. So all you need is to actually go to one for the fraud alert, and it'll go to all three. To freeze it, to go to each one. So it was a really involved process in pulling out every single credit card, and then to find out, you know, that my phone number and all my information isn't even protected. It just was, you know, from driver's license numbers to passports. So who knows? But he did what he could. And he told me he wasn't going to fill out all that information again on me. I thought he should have. So there we are. And that's our story.
It's still in debate.
Okay,
And we're sticking with it. Good, everybody. It was a nightmare.
Okay, thanks.
We got to go because we're in another class, but bye-bye.
Okay, all of those pages which I quickly went through will be in chat, and I will also send them out as an email to the Tech SIG, and they'll be in the show notes for tonight. So did we lose? Yeah, Stan's there, but I don't see him. Did we lose you, Stan?
And I muted him.
Okay, well, Huey, why don't you take it for what you've got to cover tonight?
Okay, but I'm looking at your chat, Mike, and all I see is the word T-Mobile references, but I don't see anything below it.
Yeah, I stopped typing while I was talking.
Okay.
I'll get it there while you're talking.
Okay, I just I didn't know what I was going to talk about today, but then Paul was talking about he's on his iPad so he could show things, and I don't know if any of you have seen this, but I have a tripod with a stick that expands, so it's like either a selfie stick or a single pole camera stand, but on top of it is for a phone, and you can make the phone either portrait or make it landscape. But he's on an iPad. Well, that's not going to fit in that one. So I have also an iPad holder that has the same kind of a connector that goes on that screw thing. And then I could have an iPad and then either use it as a camera going the other way, and then move it around whatever I need. Now I have coming, and it's en route through one of, I think it was Indiegogo. It might have been Kickstarter. I don't know which one. One that's a small one that's on a gimbal to hold a phone, but it will, besides holding the phone, it also has, you can turn on something to follow somebody, and using software point to say, okay, I want to follow this person or this section of the screen. So if that person moves, the whole thing moves and follows them and comes back. So if somebody's pacing or something, and it's also a gimbal, and I think it was only about 20 or 30 bucks. So I'm waiting. It's shipped from China. It's in New York at JFK, and it's been there for almost 3 or 4 days now, so I don't know when it's going to be. It's probably in customs, and I don't know when it'll be released. Now, the other thing that I did want to talk about, talking about things coming from China, and I'm going to share my screen for this. I got a, let's see, share a sound. I don't think I need to do that, but I'll do it anyway. And let me move the pictures out of the way, hide video panel. And sorry about that, Mike, because it works.
Yeah.
And let's see, I had a text file and I don't know where to put it because I had a reboot and that didn't help me with my screen flickering. Videos to do, no, nuts. Let's see where it went.
How about the general search box? Would it find it for you?
Yeah, even if I just do this and then go to, oops, and go to desktop. Oops, there's desktop. And it's a text file, so I want to sort on type and text document and Zoom 5.7. No, that's not the one I wanted. Nuts. You know what? I closed it. Let's see. Maybe it's here. There we go. Okay. I'll move it up here a little bit. This was a letter that one of my neighbors is in the promotion business. They sell the pens and all the tchotchkes that you get when you go to a trade show. And they sent out a letter to all of their customers. And I thought it would be interesting to share this with you. If you've ever read anything from them, I want you and your team to be aware of the following. 1, lack of inventory. Although we confirm inventory prior to sending you a presentation, we have seen inventory wiped out overnight. Stock from overseas vendors used to take 30 days. Now we're hopeful if it arrives in 90 days. Everything from getting the cargo vessel unloaded, clearing customs, and being trucked to the supplier has seen huge delays. Apparel is one of the hardest hit categories. Most recently, we have been informed by our screen printer of a shortage in white ink. 95% of the screen printed orders use white ink, even when you can't see it. Price increases last year. It cost the importer about $3,500 for ocean transit of one container. Today's cost is closer to $11,000. The increase in staff wages and raw materials for American-made products also are playing a huge role in the price increases. Not all vendors have been able to even keep their website current. We are receiving daily emails about increases. Supplier staffing. Our suppliers are attempting to hire and train additional staff as quickly as possible to accommodate the sudden and tremendous demand they're facing, but most are struggling to keep up. This is leading to an increase in both production and time and errors. And this is something important. FedEx, UPS, and USPS, your postal service. Wow, do we have some stories? More and more shipments are taking scenic routes to get to you. If you are in Northwest Ohio, there are so many packages going through the Perrysburg FedEx facility that they aren't able to get them on a truck daily as scheduled. We have seen them become more and more unreliable and expensive. So just to let you know, this COVID issue doesn't just affect your health. It's things coming from overseas. The prices have just skyrocketed. And it's not just the pens and the things that they get for this industry, but for all industries, including computer parts and computer chips and things that go into the computers that we want to buy. So there's shortages on computers and phones and so on. And the cost is skyrocketing and getting it here either as pieces and parts or as finished product. So it's scary.
Some automotive assembly lines have had to shut down because of the chip shortage.
Yep. But it's not just chips, it's other things too they can't get because they can't either manufacture them because they don't have people to do it, or the people are sick and they're closing the factories down. It's multiplying itself from the supplier in China to the time it gets to the US and then FedEx is having FedEx. I get FedEx packages, and I do follow the tracking. And sometimes it's stuck in one town for a week, and where FedEx is usually used to be, overnight or 2-day at the most. And even if it's air shipped, a lot of times it sits somewhere because they don't have the personnel or the ability to move it from one place to another, or they lose track of it.
I sent a package to my sister in Los Angeles from the Oviedo post office using express mail. And it was guaranteed to be there by 10 o'clock the next morning. And the day ended and she didn't have it. She got it the following day. And the post office took my claim and reimbursed me the entire price, but she was a day late getting what she needed.
Okay, that's all I got. Stan, I muted you because every time you cough or get up or move or something, the attention goes from whoever's speaking in the recording to you.
But you are muted.
So you're muted, Stan.
Unmute.
You're muted, Stan. Technology.
Yep. Can you
Stan,
hear
you're
us?
muted.
You're muted.
Nod your
Stan.
head if you can hear us, Stan.
Yeah, no. One more try.
About now.
There you
Yay. We got you. Start over. Nope, you just muted yourself. Get it unmuted and keep your hand off the mouse.
Or don't use the space bar, use the unmute. You're still muted, Stan.
Mute. That did it. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So the physicians group that my wife has been part of for a long time was Orlando Physicians Group. It is now something like well something or other. And they've been sending out like masks and sweatbands, that kind of thing. And one of them had a label made in China, and it had a manufacturing date of September 2018. And it has the new name on it. So they must have had this thing in the works for 2 or 3 years. It was incredible to me how far ahead that was planned in order to do that. So that got them past the crunch on delivery, I guess.
Well, it might have been manufactured back then, but it wasn't labeled or printed until recently.
It was embroidered with a new name on it. So they had to know the name of the new, what their organization was changing to. Just seemed odd. And by the way, I was jumping up and down because our guy came and put a new capacitor in the outside heat pump, and our air conditioning is back on. It's going to take a while to bring the temperature down. So that was good. So, all right, and I'll have to watch the recording because I'm T-Mobile guy, and I'm very anxious to get all the information that was just presented. So that'll be great. Glad you were recording it. Okay, so Mike, are you going to take over now for your part of the presentation?
Let's continue around and get everybody else. I see Sean's just come in, and I know he's going out of town tomorrow. Perhaps he'd like to share some stuff with us this evening.
Well, he's not live.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Little broken up.
And I'm actually driving, so I'm enjoying. Thank you.
Okay, he's just going to listen then. He's driving.
Okay. Well, let us know when you land.
How about Gary? Unmute.
See, I learned from Stan. I learned how to unmute. I got since this is a Tech SIG, I put doorbells on my front and back door and I found these on Amazon. That brand right there. And it's got a piezo, like a magneto in it. Okay. And so you double stick tape these onto your doors, and then these are the receivers, and you get 2 of them, and they're actually stackable. So I stacked one for the front door and one for the back door, and I still have an outlet. So I didn't lose an outlet at all. And most doorbells, transmitters require batteries, but this does not require a battery. That's why I paid $40 from it at Amazon for it, because if you buy the ones with batteries, they're like $24, and they're no good at all. And this really works. So that was one thing. And since we're a Tech SIG, the other day I was Amazon and I had to buy 4 items. I was going to buy 2 of the Samsung's 256, and I had to buy 2 of these Dr. Scholl's foot pads, okay, for my shoes.
I love those.
And so I want 2 of those and 2 of these, but because of my rewards card, the 4 items came up to like $8 more than what I had credit for. So I had to eliminate one of the items. And since this is Tech SIG, I thought it was only fitting that I get rid of one of these and stick with this, right? And the reason I like the 256 is they have a speed of 400 megabits per second. Now, if you get the 128, it's got transfer fees of 300 megabits. And if you get the 32 gigabit, it's 200. If you get the 64 gigabit, it just says high speed. They don't commit. So anyway, I really like these because I burn a lot of these per day using Super Duper and sending files to G-code files to the CNC machines. And I use this. I don't use wireless networks or anything like that. This is very dependable. And I'm at a point now where it takes about 25, 30 seconds to burn a whole new one of these, where if I get the 32 gigabyte, we're talking about 3-4 minutes. So the difference between 30 seconds and 4 minutes is huge, you know, when you're on production. So I really like these Samsung Fit. Also, my Canon printer, I have a Canon 267 DW. It's been a great printer, but it has one problem. It has a multiple personality disorder. And because when I go to print something, I should look for the printer called Canon 260, okay? But sometimes when I go to select that, it's crossed out as not available, and I have to use Canon 260 FRILL space LT. So then I can is printing on printer Canon 260 frill LT, and then all of a sudden they'll go back to Canon 260. So I'm always having to change my printer preferences, so I'll delete the printer, the FRILL version of it, but then it'll come back. So I think it's got a dissociative identity problem. So we're trying to figure out what's going on with my printer. I did get a CDC phone call. Did any of you guys get those? CDC wanting to do a survey about COVID? No? Okay.
Sounds
so
like, sounds like a spammer to me.
Well, they called about 6 times. I checked out the phone number, and you Google it, and it does say the CDC survey. They want to know, if you've had if you've been vaccinated and if you've had both vaccinations and when you did it. They also want to know if I was a transgender for some reason. And then they want to know if I was a male or a female or if I was gay. I don't know what that has to do with the CDC, but, they want to know my income. But I thought, well, I'll answer the questions. What the heck, if I'm collecting Social Security, I got the shots for free. I'll, entertain them and give them some feedback, because I'll probably wind up getting a third shot anyway. So yeah, they want to know, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you about getting COVID? And anyway, so that was about my day. So that's it for now. We can move on.
I would just caution people against answering surveys like that. But everybody has to choose themselves. But
I usually,
even if it was theoretically a CDC number, anybody can put any number in their dialer.
Well, I didn't pick up the phone. I actually called back because I did a little checking on it. And if you do check the number, the CDC is asking you to please cooperate, please help them with information. They got a whole web page on it, so and then they post the number that's going to be calling you from Chicago, Illinois. So they are giving you a heads up on their website, and if you Google the number, it comes up CDC. So I called them and he answered CDC and he was working for them. So anyway, normally my phone is a closed door, because it's like when the AT&T was here and put in the system, my VoIP system, he says, if you get phone calls and it says unavailable, that means spam.
I'll just make a comment since your lead in was your gadget du jour. Let's see if this comes through without me having to. Now I'm going to have to drop my screen here. Just a second. I'll drop the virtual background to none. Okay, it has to be none. Okay. So several of you know that I got rid of my Ring doorbell system.
Yes.
And I rewired up the plain old 18-volt, button and re-enabled my doorbell, which Ring needed anyway. And then I kept getting phone calls from people saying, hey, we just came by your house. We rang your doorbell and you didn't come to the door. So we thought you were sleeping or not home. And I said, okay, I got to do something to get alerted in my back office if somebody's at my front door ringing the doorbell. So this is a doorbell extender, $20-ish, whatever it is. Yep. You can see on the back, plugs into in any outlet, 2.4 gigahertz connection. It pairs to this device, which is just tapes to the wall, either on top of your doorbell or next to the doorbell. It's a sonic sensor, takes a couple of AA batteries and sends the signal to the receiver that you plug in the back of the room. So your doorbell rings, this accepts it. This takes one of 20 or 30 different things that rings in your back room. And I haven't installed it yet, as you can see. And my sprinkler guy had to call me 3 times on the phone to say, hey, I was at your front door. Where are you? So this goes in tomorrow.
Well, that's what happened to me. I bought the $24 versions, and then I had someone ring my bell, and finally they were out there banging on a window. and I thought, well, this Amazon doorbell's no good. So then I looked for something better, and then I found this brand, and I think they claim 1,600 feet transmission, and it's rated for 4 walls for penetration. And the one thing I like about getting 2 receivers is I place one receiver near the doorbell that's being rung. So whoever the ringee is, the ringer, whoever the person is ringing the bell, they can actually hear one of these because it's right near where they rung, and then the other one is deeper into the shop, and it lets them, if they can hear it, then they know it's working, and that's
Gary?
almost as important as me hearing it.
Gary, what's the name of that product? It's a trend.
It's called Technic.
Yeah, that's the brand name.
Yeah.
What's
Is
the
that
brand?
focus?
What's the product called?
Technic. TECKNET. Technic.
I got that part, but that's the company name.
Oh,
What's the
well,
product
that's
called?
if you go on Amazon, let's see, let me go look at my history. I like Amazon because they let me see my history.
Would you post that in the chat, please?
I will. I bought 2 of them. I actually wound up buying a 3rd one. It's called the Technic Wireless Doorbell Chime for home long range. And I will, it's, I think the range, I'm pretty sure it was, 1,300 feet, 400 meters is the range on this thing.
Yeah,
So
put that in.
I'll put it in the, is there a way to send this
Yes.
to what? Where do I send the link to?
Just click on chat.
Chat.
I guess
chat,
you're
chat.
using your Apple device, but click on chat. The chat
I see
window
it.
will open up.
Yep.
And then
I
just
see
put the Amazon link in there.
Oh, I see it. There you go. Great. That was easy.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I muted Stan again because he was eating and the screen kept changing.
Get some potato chips.
Yeah.
Stan, you need some potato chips, something crunchy.
Also, going back to the T-Mobile issue and now AT&T, because I've got to look into that because that's who I have. It's saying so many records were captured. But when you think about records, those of us who have worked with databases know that a record's only one piece of it. It's not one person. So it's not that many people. It's that many pieces that they got. So your social security number is one record, your phone number is another record, and so on. I would imagine, or the records may have a combination of a couple of those. But I think all of the reports that we see when they say 40 million records, they say 40 million were affected. Well, it's not 40 million people. And we have to bear that in mind. And no one tells you exactly how many people. They only tell you how many records.
The biggest issue with this breach, as opposed to, for example, the Office of Personnel Management, where all military people, active and retired, all civil service active and retired, and all security clearances, data was breached. So, I'm out there. Okay. It doesn't matter what happens with T-Mobile. If they get my data, it just confirms what's out there. But your SIM data is there too. Your IMEI, the MAC address, whatever else is there. And that enables the phone to be cloned. So if they've got your name, your phone number, your address goes along with it. If they are smart enough, and they probably are, to clone a SIM with that information and then activate that number on T-Mobile if they haven't blocked it with some of these other things that T-Mobile's doing now, then they can start using that phone for a lot of other things than just making phone calls. So the biggest concern originally when this information came out was that somebody could get that data and start applying for credit or getting purchases using that phone number to verify it, those kinds of things. You get calls that say, okay, two-factor authentication, we're going to call you at your phone or we're going to send you a text message. So if they've activated your number, then logged on to T-Mobile, changed the address by having them send a text to it, and then applied for something where they're going to do a two-factor authorization using the data that was breached. So I'm not crying out the sky is falling. I am just saying this breach could be more significant in its magnitude than just another data breach. So it's just, and T-Mobile's doing the right thing. as the Armitage found out, and as other things, which I don't know, I'm not a current T-Mobile customer, but Stan is. So on that main page, there are alternatives where you can actually apply for some of these other things that T-Mobile is doing for existing accounts.
So
And
if
about
you've
the
been
only comment,
breached-
go ahead.
if you've been breached and you're concerned about all this data out there, I'm not talking about you, and I'm not arguing with you at all. But what happens is to fix it or to protect yourself, you've got to put all that information out again through another service online that can be. We just keep putting that information out there, and there's just no protection for us at all.
What's to keep McAfee from being breached?
Yeah, exactly.
And Equifax was breached, and Equifax is one of the credit bureaus. So yeah, change your password regularly. Two-factor authentication, hopefully.
Spend all your money so you don't have anything they can get.
Yes.
So we have to buy a lot of gadgets.
There you go.
And don't have any money in the bank, and don't buy any coins and things, because they can trace those now too. And
yeah, Bitcoin. There was a YouTube channel that I was following. There was a travelogue, and it's a couple traveling all over Asia, including Thailand and Vietnam and all the interesting places now in the world that have opened back up again for travel. And it turns out that the guy is funding these trips not only with what he's making off his videos, but by trading in cyber currency. And he's got links that you can buy his services to teach you how to trade, set up your cyber trading account, buy all kinds of trading things like I used to do when I day traded back in the mid-90s. You know, all of that stuff, with the possibility these days of having those accounts hacked. So not going to buy Bitcoins, or what is it? Elon Musk has just come up with his new
Doge coins,
Doji or Dogi or whatever it is. Not going to do it. Bud,
Yes.
you got anything to share with us today?
Well, the only thing I did recently, which I was kind of shocked after I did it, that how well it performed, is I just installed a Kingston KC 2500 NVMe PCIe drive, the little sticks in the M2 slot, and I'm getting on a read, I'm getting 3,500 megabits a second, and I'm writing at 29 megabits a second. And that's replacing a spinning hard drive, a 7,200 RPM spinning hard drive. And you won't believe the difference in performance in that computer. It's just unbelievable. Like I said, I just did it out of spite, actually. Well, not spite, because it was a $250 investment, because I did a 2 terabyte drive. But it's the computer that I use 99% of the time. And it's just a major, major difference in performance. And
how old a computer would you say it was?
It's probably 6 or 7 years old. I mean, the computer's 16 gig of RAM, and I forget what processor. It's got one of the Ryzen, was it AMD Ryzen? I forget what I think it's a 7 in it. Forget the speed of it, but a tremendous improvement. So it's not 6 or 7 years old. It's probably 3 years old. But big difference. Well worth the money now that I've had it in there for a couple of weeks. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, if I ever get around to building another computer, I'll do it.
Yeah.
The technology is really going up. Stan, do you have things to share before I show my other screen?
Just a quick note is I just posted on the chat the NIS, the National Immunization Survey from CDC. So these are, I just posted the phone numbers that will be calling you if you haven't got a call already.
Okay, I'm just saving the chat just to be certain. Okay.
Can I ask a dumb Florida question on that? Is it because Florida is having such a big COVID problem right now that their CDC is concentrating on Florida?
No, this is a national immunization survey. It's for the whole United States.
Oh, okay.
They're calling everybody that they can.
Okay, interesting.
And for those of us that have blocks on our phones, which I do, I've got tons of blocks, they probably never get through.
Well, I gave you the link to the
Yeah.
NIS webpage, and then you can read it for yourself, make your own decision. I read it and I was convinced that I should participate. So.
Okay. Well, I'm so confused. I don't know what gender I am these days, so I'd have to figure out before I call them.
They're just getting demographics, you know.
I know.
You know.
Well, when they gave me a new aortic valve from a cow, and a cow is female, so I guess I'm transgender now.
What you got,
good one.
Stan? Your turn, Stan.
I'm gonna let you go ahead, Mike.
All right, you'll have to give Mike Lenovo co-host, please.
Got it. Done.
Okay. I'll try it again. There we go. Okay, let's see if we get rid of this stuff. All right. No, that's the other way. Hang on, we gotta get rid of these black boxes. I'll get it down to one, tiny little one up here at the top. And this is Zorin. We are looking at the Central Florida Computer Society's Lenovo laptop, and I dual booted Zorin on top of Linux Mint over the weekend. I have already shared in the Linux SIG Zorin, whose claim to fame is a very Windows-like interface. And they come in two versions, actually three versions. They come in their core version, which is 100% free. They come with Core Lite, which is designed for computers that can be at least 15 years old, if not older. And then they come with Zorin Pro, which there is a fee for, which is very unusual for Linux. So a number of people have decided, well, maybe not. So what I wanted to do was just look at it as an alternative to Linux Mint, which is what the Central Florida Computer Society's Linux SIG has been doing. If you look at the screen, you can see essentially that instead of their Windows Start button, they've got their Zorin Start button. So click on that and you get a very Windows-like menu with subject organized type of links. For example, I can go to accessories and you can get some accessories. You can go to games, you can get games. You can go to the graphics, you get graphics. And you can also go to different locations on the computer when things are stored. And if you want to put an icon on the desktop, for example, if I wanted to go and put a clock on the desktop, I can right click on it and say add to desktop, close this, and you can see I now have clocks on the desktop. So it's very Windows-like, if you will, in what it can do. And my primary browser is the Brave browser on just about all my computers these days. So, for example, here is the Central Florida Computer Society's website. And, you know, if all you're going to do is use a computer just to run programs and run applications and to browse, Very little maintenance from a maintenance standpoint. Very fast. This is not the fastest computer in the world, but the app, the operating system is very fast. Fairly easy to maintain. Let's see if I did put a little tour on here. So they're saying, welcome to Zorin OS 16. So again, you saw me open menus to launch the apps. You can change your look and feel of the desktop. I just took the default desktop that it came with. And quite frankly, I don't think it's worth it to me to pay another $39 to get 100% Windows 11 look-alike, if you will, because this looks very much like Linux Mint to me anyway. But it seems to, at least it gives you a lot of different options where, for example, I can change where my panel goes from the bottom. I can put it on the side if I like, which you can do in Windows anyway, but I've always kept it on the bottom. You can connect your online account. You can do that with any of them anyway. As you can do now with Windows 10, and I'm assuming with Windows 11, you can link your phone and your computer. Very similar kinds of things if you wish. You can go to different software. There's literally thousands of apps that is available. And if I go to this, it'll open up my browser, I believe. Yeah, okay. So one of the unusual things, without installing extra software, for a long time, there's been a software application in Linux called Wine. And you can go through hoops and eventually run Windows apps if you need to. This is actually built into Zorin, they claim. Haven't tried it yet. And in the Linux SIG, we might. But they have a software store. And typically in the Linux world, you have different repositories. These are the store, say, it's like the Microsoft Store, if you will, or the Google Play Store. So they have different repositories, but Zorin has their own repository. They also support all of the Ubuntu application repositories, 2 hubs of repositories for Linux type applications that normally are not included, and the Snap Store is not included with Linux Mint, for example. They've chosen not to include it. So out of the box, all these are available to start getting software that may not actually come by default with Zorin, but a bunch does anyway. And so they've got recommended apps. They've got different studio apps that you can get. And you can also download what are called .deb files. Think of those as, in Windows, they would be an exe extractable file for installation. So in Debian type Linux, all you do is double click on them and they install. And there's third-party apps like that. And this is where I still want to look into it to see, well, okay, could I actually run Quicken in Zorin? It might be my solution. One less thing that I'm sort of tethered to Windows with is the fact that I can't run Quicken on Linux right now. So I'd like to try that. And they give you different ideas of the kinds of things that you can get from different applications. So let me close this up. I'm gonna have to move this box out of the way. Can I move the box? No, I can't move the box. Can I alternate F4 out of it? Yes, all right. It comes with LibreOffice. I have not tried OnlyOffice, something I've never heard of before, but most of us know about LibreOffice, but it has a complete suite of Office compatible programs, and they're making it more and more compatible with more and more capabilities in terms of what is in the formatting and in the fonts that are in Write for Office or Writer for LibreOffice. And the same with Calc for LibreOffice or Excel for Office 365. And Impress for PowerPoint, and Draw, I haven't looked at to see, it's probably very much like some of the drawing programs. And that just comes stock. Let's see if there's anything else.
Mike, why were those two apps at the bottom grayed out? Do you have to pay extra for that?
Libre is free, so I'm not sure. It may be a different modules that I've got.
One was math formula and
right.
A previous. Hit the previous button.
Yeah, let me just see what it says here. Okay,
math formula and a base database.
Let's see if extensions is what I need. Let's see if that's what it is. No, these are.
It sounds like a database.
These are add-ins. I'm not sure why it's not included. So I will research that.
Probably more money, especially for a database, maybe.
Well, it shouldn't be because nothing in LibreOffice is paid for. It may not have come. See, this is default. I didn't download the latest version.
Okay.
So it may be that by default, they didn't include those modules for taking up space.
Yeah.
Unless you want them.
Plus it's the free version.
Well, Libre is free.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah, it's the free version of Zorn, yes.
You're right.
Right. Okay, let's see what else we got in here. Oh, okay, we hope you enjoy it. So my intention wasn't really to spend a lot of time on this, but just to show it to you. And in the upcoming September Linux SIG, we'll take a closer look and do some comparisons between this and Mint, which is what we have been using. Okay, let me stop share. Hello, I found this problem earlier today. For some reason, I was not able to stop share myself. So Stan, as host, if you will click on participants, or no, click on the, I think it's on the screen sharing at the top on the drop down box, and you can find me that I'm sharing and you can stop me from sharing. That did it. Thank you. I came up with that as a problem also today when I was testing. Not sure what that was.
Okay. Sean, are you still in your car?
Yes, I'm almost to Chattanooga.
Oh.
40 miles, about 40 miles south of Chattanooga on 75.
Well, hopefully you're not watching the video.
It's on, but I'm not watching it.
Got it. Okay. Well, there was just one thing I wanted to bring up, and Huey and Mike, we've both been talking about smart guys recently, because Huey, you mentioned, I thought that you contacted somebody at Smart Guys about getting a Windows 10 used machine that will allow you to install Windows 11. Who did you speak to there? Do you know?
I didn't. I just looked at their website.
Ah, I see. Because I stopped in there just the other day, and I was very surprised because Glenn is there full time now, apparently. Jeremiah hasn't been with them since, I think he said 9 months or so. And the other couple of things that came up in his quick conversation was that he didn't know why anyone was at all interested in Windows 11, because, as he said, every other program they put out is junk. He said he made so much money when 8 came out. He said he'll still sell lots of 7 and 10, and had no interest in getting into 11 at all. And the other thing that I thought was funny was he was talking about he's decided he wants to get out. He's having a fantastic year, but he's decided that his next goal is to be retired in 2 years. I don't know if he's talking about selling it or closing it out. I don't think his kids are interested in taking over Smart Guys. So rather unusual in my, it surprised me anyway.
Well, that will thin out the used computer market here in Orlando a bit. Refresh Computers, I know, is one.
Yep. And I did contact them as well with the thought of doing what you and Ray Baxter have done, you know, getting a inexpensive machine to put Windows 11 on. Refresh said they had nothing in their store that would handle it. It's the 8th generation processor that all of theirs are much older, so the 6th generation or whatever, so they don't have that at all.
I think that Windows is going to, Microsoft is going to back down a little bit on their hardware requirements. There are too many computers out there in the world that don't meet the current status of them. So I think they might back down a little bit.
Well,
and there's nothing in Windows 11 that's exciting at all. I'm describing Windows 11 as Windows 10 with a new dress.
Except that they are giving supposedly many new security features and better protection. And part of that is, I'm sorry, the chipset and that 8th generation that allows them to have more control as to what's happening on through the motherboard. We'll have to wait and see.
Hey, Stan, are they going to charge for Windows 11?
No, it's free. If you got if you have a licensed Windows 10, it's free.
Okay.
I've got
if you
those.
don't, if they charge,
You broke up, Sean.
if you
So-
don't have a current Windows license,
You need a current Windows 10 license.
okay. Otherwise, there's no way to get it.
I haven't heard anything else yet.
Okay.
I'm sure you can buy a new computer with it, or I believe you may be able to buy the software as well. And I also read this week, it looks like it's going to be ready for manufacture, their RTM, which is when it'll be released, probably within 2 months.
I'm
But they're
hearing
going to be
October is a possibility.
Yeah, which is 2 months.
Yeah.
And I'm also hearing that if you're on the dev insider as opposed to the beta insider, they're going to be doing a lot of testing, so a lot of things can go wrong with it. So you certainly don't want to do it on your main computer.
If you have a
because,
Microsoft account, they have released an ISO. And you can, if you have a Microsoft account, you can go out there and download it. I downloaded it the other day. I haven't installed it on anything yet. I do have part of the insider program on one computer, but it doesn't have all the hardware requirements. So I'm not seeing the full effect of it. I do have let's say, an active, almost 100% Windows 11 computer running, whatever that means. But
I have one, and I have demonstrated it at the Windows SIG
yeah,
this past month, and it was and the recording's online. But it's only got 4 gigabytes of RAM, and I think it's 64 gigabytes of storage, but I added a 128 gigabyte little SD card as well. And it's only to do the only do the testing. And when time comes, I'll probably switch my main computer to Windows 11 and then use I've got an older machine that I'll use Windows 10 so I can do both, just so I can do it and talk about both. But I'm not seeing a real major reason for people to go to 11 at this point.
neither do I.
You know, and Windows 10 is going to be around until 2025.
Yep.
Which a lot of the computers that you're running it on now, around 2025, probably will need to be replaced, and then you go to Windows 11, or go to Windows 10. So, you know, there's going to be things on it, and they're going to do some things with it. that you might want to have, and there might be some things that you don't need at all, and stay with Windows 10. Some of the people on here probably still have Windows 7 machines. So
I do.
Pointing down at him.
Do I recall hearing that you had to have a Windows Pro and not Home in order to put 11 on it machine?
no, because I'm running Home on this HP that I got. It came with Home, so it updated to Home.
I saw that there was a Gateway 11-inch combination. It is a touch screen and it's a flip over, so you can make a tablet out of it. It doesn't come apart, but you can make a flip over. And I think that was $200 with 4 gigabytes. And I was half dabbling with the idea that might be something to play around with, and get 2 weeks to return it if you don't like it.
Or if it doesn't run Windows 11.
Yeah.
Although Bob G has a machine that said it didn't have the 2.0 TPM chip, and it didn't have something, the processor wasn't strong enough, and yet he's got Windows 11 running on it. How long that will go, I don't know. And like Bud said, maybe they've lessened the requirements, or they may have lessened it during the testing for a particular version, and then it'll stop working when they go to a newer testing version. So we'll have to see on that one.
Got it. Okay, who else?
Or you can go to Linux and learn a whole new operating system and new terminology and so on, and then figure out ways to make it work. So
Michael holds your hand, teach you how to do it.
yeah.
Well, no, I mean, any operating system, you can go all the way back to the MS-DOS days, and any operating system has got its quirks. And it's always been, even in the early MS-DOS days, we had members of the Computer Society that, yeah, we had an MS-DOS SIG, but they really didn't want to learn all the ins and outs of batch programming and every command that you could use, but they needed to learn some commands. So we're finding out with Linux, yeah, we still need to learn some commands. And I can remember we spent a lot of time back in those days writing menu programs. So
Batch
you would
files.
have a computer and it would have its own individual programs. And instead of going to the command line to run those programs, you'd run a menu, create a batch file when the computer started up, and it would go to the menu program, and you press 1 for WordPerfect and 2 for Lotus 1, 2, 3, and so on. And you really you didn't have to learn the operating system. You knew it was there. And yeah, we learned how to use the copy command and how to use the X copy command and things like that. But the operating system sort of stayed in the
I'm
background.
in a meeting. What?
Meeting?
So
I'm gonna come in.
my goal with the Linux,
Yeah, when it's ready.
Okay.
my goal with Linux has really been find out what's out there, and then how simple can it be made. And then, okay, for those that want to learn, how does the command line and how do we use all these utilities and, stuff like that. I'll do it for as long as they want to do it. But I, just like today or last weekend, actually, seeing that Zorn was probably a factor of maybe 2, possibly even 3, simpler than Linux Mint just out of the box. It's, for me now, if somebody said, well, what version of Mint would you put in? I'll finish my evaluation, but I'd say, yeah, put Zorn on, because once it's in there, you can do all the stuff you would do with a computer without really having to go to the command line, without really having to install a whole bunch of extra programs. And you can browse and you can do your email and you can do your presentations, and you can do all of that. Turn it off or close the lid, come back, turn it on, and you're back up into your computing again. So.
And in cloud computing, you could have something on your desktop, a monitor and a keyboard, and save everything out to the cloud. Oh, wait a minute. That's what we used to have in the days of the IBM 360s. Exactly what we had. So things change and come back. So who knows? We try to learn new stuff and it turns around and comes back and we do it all over again.
Yep. And I like that idea. You know, you're basically buying a terminal and renting as powerful or as little power as you want from Microsoft. And it's the Office 365. In essence, you're leasing it, although 365 does run on your computer. I'm sure when you're in the Windows 365, all of those applications are going to be on that computer in the cloud. So all you're really going to have is some basic boot up software, enough local memory to give you the video that you need, and probably a soundboard and a few other things that are in there, the graphics card. But everything else is just going to be a virtual computer that's online. And you've told Microsoft how much virtual memory, how much memory do you want it to have? 16K, 32K, 64K? How much storage do you want it to have? You know, and that's what you're renting. And then you just close your lid, walk away, open your lid back up, log in, and you're back on that computer exactly the way you left it. You know,
and Microsoft was offering free trials for the Windows in the Sky, and they had to shut it down because they had so many people who wanted to try it and work with it. So the demand is there to go back and do that. And so they may have something that's going to work. Obviously, it's not for you and I at $20 a month as the cheapest, and that's for 4K of memory, or not 4K, 4 gig of memory, and I think 32 gig of storage. Obviously, we want more than that. And then, of course, the price increases at that point. But I'm sure after they start doing it, they'll make it cheaper. They'll find ways to make money on the high ends, and let end users have it, home users have it a lot cheaper. So we'll have to see where it's going to go. But apparently the demand is there. People want that.
Think of small businesses. I used to manage my wife's real estate office that had 10 computers. And, you know, I'd have to go in every month and do maintenance on them. And occasionally have to change a card, or something would replace a hard drive, restore a backup, make sure the backups were working, all the rest of that stuff. Change a monitor. Of course, monitors you probably still have to change out. But instead, take an office that has 10 computers, and instead they're all in the cloud. All you have is a terminal workstation, a mouse, a keyboard, a monitor, and a little box the size of your knuck or smaller. And you're paying a monthly fee. You don't need anybody that's, you know, has to maintain it. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Is that Paul's TV that's playing? I'm hearing a TV in the background.
Yeah, I am too.
That may be mine. Let me just mute myself.
And Stan, every time something goes on his computer, it dings, and then it changes the camera to his picture from whoever's talking. So I guess it's best to be muted and unmute yourself when you want to talk.
Just checking out my space bar. It works.
Hey, Mike,
Yes, Sean.
did I miss your conversation about the Synology?
Didn't talk about Synology tonight. That's another whole gadget discussion.
Oh, I guess you're saving it for next month.
I think we mentioned it in last month's Tech SIG, just in passing, that I got a Synology file server. It's a 2-disk, 2 terabyte per disk, RAID array in a network attached storage enclosure, and then it has its own little computer in it. And it basically can be a file server, a photo server, a VPN server, a mail server, a server. It can do a lot of things. I'm well underusing it. And so I guess I lit the spark under Sean, and he just went whole hog and got a super Synology system. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I got a 32 terabyte. Well, I got a 4-disc model that has 32 terabyte of storage overall. Of course, I'm running it in a RAID 5, so it brings it down to about 20, just under 24 terabytes of storage space. And the plan is to use that for storage for our. I actually have a small. My wife and I have a small photography, like a stock photography business where we travel, take pictures, and sell it on Getty and Adobe and so forth. And that's a repository for the photos. And instead of having a bunch of hard drives laying around, everything goes there. And then we've got a pretty fast network, so we can just use that to access that Synology. Synology is. I didn't talk to you about this, Mike, but the Synology is as of Saturday, I guess. I started backing that up to a company called Backblaze. Backblaze B2 storage is for businesses, and prices are reasonable. In fact, if you don't have a lot of data, they're really reasonable. But it's currently, as we speak, backing that data up because I've got about 2.5 terabytes of data on there now. I unloaded a couple drives onto that unit, but the unit has the ability to, and yours may do this as well, have some solids. Well, you've got solid state drives. I bought regular spinning disks for this that are NAS rated, but I bought some NVMe 512 gig NVMe SSD drives that go into the bottom of the unit. And those are strictly for caching. They're not volumes. And then I upgraded the memory to 8 gigabytes. It comes with 4, and it has a DIMM slot for another 4. So, and interestingly, I found by searching on Reddit and the web and so forth that people have put in like 32 gigabytes of 30, I forget, way more memory than Synology technically supports. And I clicked and I bought a 16 gigabyte. Yeah, I bought a 16 gigabyte chip. But then as I was reading, I decided against it because it's not officially supported and I don't want to lose any data. So I went back down to just getting a 4 gigabyte card, and I put that in there. So it's nice and fast, way faster than what I had before, which was an old unit that didn't have much power. This is great. I'm very happy with it, and there's a lot to learn because it's got Docker and all kinds of different applications in it that you can add functionality to your network that you didn't have before. So anyway, yeah. So I'm looking forward to talking to you more about that offline, about how yours is going, and we can put our heads together and figure things out.
We have a third person. We have a third person. He's not in the Central Florida Computer Society yet. And in a lunch group that I'm in, we found out that he has a Synology also. And so I included him on some emails with Sean and said, we'll form a CFCS Synology SIG because now we have 3 people.
I've got one that I just use for data storage though.
Well, I know the Armitages have, if I remember correctly, Donna said it was an 8 terabyte network attached storage drive or case with a drive in it. And they were going through all kinds of hoops to get it to show up on Windows and then to get it to show up on Linux. And I've been, as a research project, Windows started to make networking fairly easy. And then it got a little bit more complex when they say they dropped work groups, yet the work groups are still there. You just don't get prompted for as you used to when you first install Windows 10. And it took me a while to get the Synology to show up, and I got that to show up. And then I wanted to get it to show up on the Linux computers, and that took even more time. And then I wanted the Linux computers to show up in Windows and the Windows computers to show up in Linux. And that's taking even more time. So networking is not completely down at the layman level yet. And where it should be a lot easier is when people just go into Best Buy and say, hey, I want a network attached storage drive, and don't give much thought to how it's going to work on the computers when they take it home. So that's also, a subject that may be worth looking at for some kind of a short-term group.
Yep, I'd be into that.
I think we hit the wall there, Stan.
Well, that's good because my dinner is about ready. It's dinner time in California. I'm going to bail, guys. So.
And dessert time here.
There you go.
Okay, well, I guess that's it. I had a couple of things that are not urgent. They'll hold to next time. And I've had a hectic day with all the air conditioning issues. And Mike, your comparison of, it was $200 to resolve this bad capacitor issue versus, what, $5,000-$10,000 to replace the whole machine. It's 10 years old at least. So I would probably get better efficiency out of it. Maybe one of these days I'll bite the bullet. But okay, everyone stay safe. Keep your social distance, wear your mask when
Good night.
tight groups, and we'll see you all next time.
Good night, all.
Don't forget to save the recording.
Well, and one last thing, since Sean is driving, he's obviously not going to be sending out minutes. So make sure that you go to the chat, find those 3 dots and download it yourself. And then Huey will be sending a link out to the recording if you want to go back through it that way. So